I will first start with saying out some of the features of today's webinar. This webinar is being recorded. There is international sign interpretation, language interpretation in English and Bhasha. A CC button on your screen will enable the captions. If you need captions in a different window, the links is in the chat box. Kindly take a few seconds to enable the language of your own choice in the language options again at the bottom of your screen. There will be an option to mute original audio. Please do not select this option. If you do, you might miss some parts of the audio. So let's take 10 seconds so you can start the language of your own choice in the language options. Should you have any questions for panelists, kindly use the Q&A option or leave your question in the chat box. Our team is monitoring both and will try to respond to questions in the course of the event where possible. We hope to have time for questions wherein participants may be invited to ask questions. Please note, we cannot put camera on for the participants due to the limitations on the platform where time is an issue. Priority will be given to live answering. Questions that are relevant to the discussion will have been presented. Should you have any accessibility issues, please send a private message to the host account or email at webinars@ida-secretariat.org, and the team will try to resolve to their best of their ability. We request all the speakers to kindly keep to times and to ensure that they speak slow enough for the interpreters and captioners to follow. We would like to thank the logistic and communication teams at the International Disability Alliance for their hard work and consideration in enabling the participation of all of us here today. I thank all our eminent speakers who have joined today for this regional event on deinstitutionalization and human degrading treatment to contribute to the GDS Youth Summit and preparing youth with disabilities for deinstitutionalization. My name is Vakar Puri, and I am based in Pakistan, and I'm working with Transforming Communities for Inclusion as a Senior Programs Manager. As you know, that youth with mental, intellectual, multiple, psychosocial disabilities, users and survivors of psychiatry, and those with intersectional neurodiverse identities are still left behind in the context of the human rights and inclusion. Institutionalization is a reality in many countries and is growing massively in middle income countries, particularly through new and private institutions. Youth with psychosocial disabilities and children with intellectual disabilities are more commonly found in mental asylums, rehabilitation centers, clinics, nursing homes, and a variety of care institutions facing a long-term confinement and isolation, physical and chemical restraint. In developing countries like Pakistan, India, and Nepal, where there are very limited resources available, children with disabilities are taken as burden on their families and are forced to live in institutions for the rest of their lives. And in the institutions, children have poor health, hygiene, bad appetite, rely on charities for their lifetime, no access to quality education, and face abuse inside the institutions. The objectives behind organizing today's session is to highlight the situation of youth with disabilities and raise a voice at the regional level to emphasize on having a CRPD compliant community-based services for enabling environments for youth with disabilities in our communities and deinstitutionalization. This youth summit will be a unique platform for all of us to create a dialogue between multiple stakeholders to work on different solutions for deinstitutionalization and how we can include youth with disabilities in the mainstream societies who still continue to face exclusion in their societies. We look forward to collaborating with the organizations working on this subject and bringing the agenda forward for the inclusion of persons with disabilities. I would now like to introduce to our first speaker, Mr. Agus Hidayat. Agus is a youth disability rights activist focusing on the rights of persons with psychosocial and intellectual disabilities in Indonesia. He works with youth with psychosocial disabilities through peer support group programs, social media campaigns, disability rights advocacy, and awareness campaigns to raise the issues of persons with psychosocial disabilities to the public. Agus is founder of Remisi, an OPD of persons with psychosocial disabilities in Indonesia. He has been involved in alternative reporting and monitoring of the implementation of the CRPD. He has also been working with the government of Indonesia for advocating for the rights of persons with psychosocial disabilities. I request August to take the floor. Over.
Okay, thank you, Wakar. I hope you can hear me well. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today, I'm going to show you the situation of person with psychosocial disability. I'm going to share my presentation. So today I'm going to talk about the situation of youth with psychosocial disabilities within social care institution in Indonesia. In developing countries, institutionalization is very different. Let's say if we compare to Europe or in the USA, which more like a mental hospital. But today I'm going to present the reality of how torture and inhuman or degrading treatment are cruel reality in Indonesia. And spoiler alert, if you are a person who live with experience, it might be triggering you, but I hope not. So I hope this is going to be a great discussion for Valentine's Day. So yeah. The situation, social care institution in Indonesia is more common, and there are hundreds of them. There is no specific data about how many people live within the social care institution, but I'm assuming there are probably like 20,000 people who live within the social care institution. It's only for people with or person with psychosocial disabilities only. According to Human Rights Watch, there was 40,000 people who live in social care institution in 2016, but we don't really know to be exact the number right now because we don't really have the opportunity to get the data. And yes, I'm going to talk about the arbitrary detention or for institutionalization. Suckling is a remain common practice. I will show you in the next slide. Torture and violence, which is physical violence, psychological, sexual, and economic violence, malnutrition within the institutionalization, enforced treatment and medication, under medicalization, physical health problem, poor sanitation, no limit of detention, segregation, and all of them. And for those of you who can see, the left picture is a young woman with psychosocial disability who I visit in last year, and she doesn't really know anything about what really happened in the world, such as a pandemic situation. So yeah, the next slide is the situation. The source of the pictures is from Living in Hell Human Rights Watch in 2016. Institutionalization in Indonesia is very cruel and prison-like or resemble like a cage. This practice, arbitrary detention or forced institutionalization, is legal, and this illegal detention center as a social care institution is legalized and approved by the government. Suckling remain a common practice. Usually people with psychosocial disabilities are in chain. Abuse and physical violence are experienced by many people with psychosocial disabilities in social care institution. In confinement, some of them are sexually assaulted and receive multiple sexual violence from a few people who were there as quote-unquote nurse. They don't have privacy. They are not allowed to have private stuff such as phone, and their access to information is very limited. Some women, they don't get sanitary napkin during their periods. That one that I found, that I got the information when I visited a social care institution last year. I can see some blood in their room during my last visit. The lack of women who works as a social care worker is one of the main issues in Indonesia. Some rape cases could not be reported as well because they are scared to make a report. And a few women with psychosocial disability who get unwanted pregnant has to give birth during confinement. And yes, they will take the child because the mother is considered is not sane enough, quote unquote, to take care of the baby. Malnutrition and malpractices are faced by them. Chain, roof, and unhealthy food are considered enough for them. The medication in a few social care institutions are forcibly given without diagnosis or medical assessment. Yet in some other social care institutions, no medication or medicine is not allowed at all because they use traditional or forced religious treatment to quote unquote cure them as a person who live with mental illness. Poor sanitation, malnutrition, torture, and violence, of course, will affect their health, body, physically, and mentally. The next slide. Sorry. Yeah. Here is the situation of youth with psychosocial disabilities that I visited last year during pandemic, and a lot of people who live within social care institutions, they are being punished and tortured, and not because they did any criminal. It is because they are a person with psychosocial disabilities. So this is a disability punishment. It's not a criminal punishment. And there is no limit of detention could make person with psychosocial disabilities to live. They could be in the detention center until they die. Overcapacity is one of the issues in some social care institution, and in some other social care institution, the resident is not too many, but they stay in something like in a cage. I would say it's cage instead of room. One of them who lived there told me, I would rather get shot in the head rather than living like this for forever because there is no future in here. And some of them are still hoping for their family to come and release them, or they are just there because they don't know where their families are, and they're not just forgotten, but also they are segregated from the society. So this is the picture in the left where you can see a door. It's where is the suckling process is practices in some social care institution. And this picture on your right, it is felt more like a prison and a cage, to be honest, rather than a social care institution. And this is real realities in Indonesia that I really have to show you. The cause of the the institutionalization in Indonesia, of course, is the stigma and discrimination, lack of knowledge from the society, from the family, and from the people who live with psychosocial disability as well. The economic also is one of the main issue, and paternalistic culture and power relations, because youth are in a less power relations. Usually within the family. So young persons with psychosocial disabilities are very usually dependent on family support due to difficulties in finding and keep a job. Yet sometimes psychosocial disabilities have to be hidden even from our own families due to the stigma. And for some of us who do not have enough support. They face all forms of violence and have no independence at all, because our families can violate our rights and they can put ourselves to the social care institution. Often our thoughts and opinions are ignored because maybe they think that we are young and our legal capacity is automatically is abolished. And in some regions, they are caged because they are considered not sane, quote unquote, sane enough. Thousands of young people with psychosocial disability are still living in the institution today. I am not sure how many of them to be exact, as well as our government. A young person with psychosocial disabilities rarely have the opportunity to participate equally in the society, as this due to preconceived notions and stigma about our identities. They are not considered as a person with disability, but they are considered as a person who have mental illness. Identity of person with psychosocial disability is often associated with it being dangerous or less than human or incapable. And yeah, and there are a lot of stigma around the society regarding person or young person with psychosocial disabilities. So um, the impact is, of course, one is losing our legal capacity and our civil rights as a person, torture, violence, health, both physically and mentally, and people who live within the social care institution has potentially in prison or in a cage until they die, and they have no life at all. They don't have a meaningful life. They can be, when I ask people who live there, they have been living in there for 1 year, 5 years, 20 years, or 30 years. When I ask someone who were 60 at the time, and she said that she has been living in there for 30 years, and then she started enter the institutionalization or social care institution at the age of 30. This is quite scary and a serious threat for a young person with psychosocial disabilities. During this pandemic and lockdown, their invisibility has been further compounded. The lack of access to healthcare for young person with psychosocial disability has been more exacerbated. Some of social care institutions refuse COVID-19 vaccine. This is more than a serious problem that we need to address and solve. In the next slide, I would like to show you two totally different picture. On the left picture, there is me, of course, and my friend who is a celebrity who is speak about mental health, very strong mental health advocate, and the right girl is who already graduated from medical school, and my friends who live in Jakarta. On my right is graduated from psychology, and then the right picture is a person who live within confinement and shackling. So what makes us the different? I think there is no different at all. The difference is only one. It's a support. It's a support on education. It's support to make us get a true job and make enough for a living. It's a health support, financial support, social support, friends or family, like peer support, social services, and any other range of support services that we need in our community, like community-based services. What we need in my next slide, the first one is legal reform. Second one, specific deinstitutionalization programs, range of support services that I've mentioned before in the previous slide, and advanced social protection. Advanced social protection programs such as disability allowance, concession card, public housing, and many other inclusive social protection schemes. It's more, it's what we need to to fulfill our rights, and we need the legal reform, and we have to ban torture for base psychosocial disability, because in Indonesia we already ratified not only CRPD but also the Convention Against Torture, and funding on for empowerment program to connect them to the job is also needed, and of course a range of support services. Thank you. I'm really happy to give the floor back to you, Walker. Thank you so much.
Thank you, August. Thank you so much for sharing your views on the situation of persons with psychosocial disabilities in Indonesia, and especially women with psychosocial disabilities. And I think there is a dire need to, aware the governments, the society on deinstitutionalization and promote as many as CRPD-based, community-based services programs. And the point you mentioned about the harassment and raping women with psychosocial disabilities in the institution, this should also be addressed on a priority basis. And as you mentioned, thousands of people with psychosocial disabilities and intellectual disabilities are living within the institutions who are subject to violence, and they have no access to information. They will not have access to health services, no access to education services, no access to employment. And I totally agree with you with the points you mentioned about our needs. I think this is very basic, that we should have legal reforms, social protection, access to social protection, and deinstitutionalization programs. I think having deinstitutionalization programs is a start, and once we have those in place, it will, help the governments and also the civil society and organizations working in Indonesia to, to transform the this transform from institutionalization to deinstitutionalization. I thank you once again for, sharing your views on institutionalization. I will now proceed to with providing the floor to the second speaker, Mr. Baek. Mr. Baek is a deaf person living in Korea. He received his a bachelor degree in social welfare from Hanyang University and is currently serving as a relay interpreter for the deaf at the Seodam-gyu Sign Language Interpretation Center in Seoul. He is in charge of case management by interpreting and consulting for the deaf. He is president of WFD for the social development of Asian and young people living with hearing impairments. He will be speaking on what are the impacts of Korean Sign Language laws, especially when people with hearing impairment access health services. For example, when they visit to hospitals or any treatment places. He will also share examples of how people with hearing impairment are subject to degrade treatment in Korea and Asia. Over to you, Mr. Baek. Please take the floor. Over.
So I would like to share with you all on from the Asian perspective on the youth community, on the situation that we are facing. So this is some of the problems that we encounter. So first of all, as we perhaps all know, during our election, we have kind of proposed for to talk about during the presidential debate. During our presidential debate, there were no sign language interpreter being provided. So what happened was that the deaf were not being able to participate or able to watch what was happening. And a lot of missing information happened, leading to a lot of issues because there were 4 candidates during the presidential debate, and it was difficult to follow without an interpreter. And at the large hospitals, whereby we see that the professional sign language interpreters are absent and they're not provided at hospitals in the country. So when a deaf person needs to see a doctor, and communication has always been a problem, especially the lack of interpreters who are professional, and written communication is also difficult for the deaf person. And therefore, having an interpreter at hospitals for medical services is important. And for schools, the situation we can see that most of the schools hearing, the hearing teachers are not proficient in sign language. So for a deaf person, when he or she attends a school, it's very hard to follow what's happening in class, or the classroom learning. It's been stifling for the deaf. I think this is something that we see across many countries. And also in South Korea, what we saw was that we have recognized just to clarify, so 7 years ago, in the sign language, Korean Sign Language, it's recognized. And therefore now we are moving towards the changing of the system in education, whereby to provide in sign language in schools but the teachers who are hearing has difficulty communicating using sign language. Another issue that we face at work or employment, I think across Asia Pacific, we can see whether you're a blind person, those on wheelchair, opportunities are much lesser. Similarly, for the deaf person, we see communication being a barrier. Many companies find it a reason as to why they do not want to hire a deaf person into their organization. And this creates a lot of problem where the government is working towards proposing the need for anti-discrimination policies, or whereby to encourage the companies to actually hire deaf people. So this is something that we are moving towards, and the situation that we had in the past and what we want to change. Similarly, across South Asia Pacific, what we see is that there's a need for that's right, let me retract. So there's a need for sign language interpreters who are professional. And we see that in, for example, at banks, and if, for example, if there is a credit card situation, they will call the client or the customer to verify a transaction, but that person is unable to pick up the call. So what happens is that it is not possible to actually communicate with the bank offices to verify a transaction. And when we tell them that, can we use a text message instead? They say, no, we need to use a voice recognition. It has to be, and that creates a lot of barriers for deaf customer whenever a bank calls them for verification. And because of that, we see the need for having this sign language across also in court situations. We see that sign language is being recognized, and therefore we hope and wish to have it being used across in the different institutions, from bank, from at courts, etc. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, the next slide here, this is on television. This is a screenshot of what's happening on whereby we have interpreters on television with a very small embedded video. So in the past, for example, during the Winter Olympics, actually just recently, you can see the Winter Olympics is happening in China, in Beijing. The interpreter, it's provided with 50-50% screen ratio. So there's a signer, 50% being shared on the screen. So that provides accessibility because it's visually clearer and the deaf is able to watch it. All right. So the presentation by our speaker, Mr. Beck, he has completed on his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beck. Thank you for sharing the challenges faced by people with hearing impairment and highlighting how deaf people miss accessing the informations at different places. For example, hospitals. I think having access to health services is a very basic and fundamental human right. If governments are not being able to provide interpreters at the hospitals, they must have, there must be provisions of providing reasonable accommodations so that deaf people can, access the health services on an equal basis to others. Also, thank you for highlighting that that there is a need to train the interpreters in the schools so that deaf people can also have access to quality education services, and also there must be provision of a deaf there must be availability of interpreters at the workplaces so that people with hearing impairment have access to health to the employment services. We now have a video on the 10 principles of good treatment of children and adolescents with disabilities developed by UNICEF. I request the backend team to please play the video.
Well-being and development. Principle 1. The UN Secretary-General's Special Envoy on Disability and Accessibility and UNICEF present children and adolescents with disabilities from around the world reading 10 principles for their protection, well-being and development. Principle 1.
I exist as I am.
I am a person just like you.
I deserve to be respected and have my diversity valued.
I have the same human rights as you and everyone else.
Principle 2.
I like that you're kind to me.
Love me and play with me. You would like to be loved and treated equally too.
Have my best interests at heart and enjoy life with me.
Principle 3.
I like that you take care of me, protect me, and teach me how to protect myself.
I will also be there for you in my own way.
In my own way.
Principle 4.
I want you to accept me as I am, help me develop my abilities and talents, and give me a good quality education.
I'm happy when you see my strengths.
And help me to engage with others.
Principle 5.
I like that you listen to me, explain things to me, and consider my opinion.
This makes me feel safe and helps me learn and develop.
Principle 6.
I like that you believe in me and you help me grow.
This strengthens my self-esteem, my capacity, and my autonomy.
Principle 7.
I like that you understand me, support me, and reassure me when I'm upset, angry, or frustrated.
Often, it is in these moments that I need you the most.
Principle 8.
I like that you include me.
I want to live in a friendly, peaceful, and inclusive environment, and for you to respect and support how I communicate best.
Principle 9.
I want you to respect me and protect me from all forms of violence.
Everywhere and all the time.
Just like anyone else, my body,
My soul and my mind
Deserve to be protected.
Protected.
Principle 10.
It matters to me that you believe me.
I need to be trusted, just like you.
These 10 principles are part of a new campaign initiated by Maria Soledad Cisternas Reyes, the UN Secretary-General's Special Envoy on Disability and Accessibility, to promote good treatment of children and adolescents with disabilities.
Bene. Tesseroni.
Outtakes of the children with disabilities. Special thanks to UNICEF country offices in Bhutan, Brazil, Croatia, Egypt, Kazakhstan, Oman, Paraguay, and South Africa.
Thank you so much to the backend team for playing this wonderful video for us. I already see so many requests for providing this link to so many participants who are attending this webinar today. You will definitely receive the link for this video in the chat box. I would now move to our next speaker, Ms. Yuni Asaka, a junior research fellow at the Donald Basley Institute. Her primary role involves working on the disabled person-led monitoring of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and Reimagining Parenting project. Ms. Umi graduated with a Bachelor of Social Work from the University of Otago in 2019. Her particular interest is supporting young people and families to build healthy relationships with each other. She moved to New Zealand when she was 15 years old. Having lived experience of disability and cultural diversity, she was passionate about envisioning and working towards a society where no one is left behind. And her work has been through research, activism, and community work. I would request Ms. Uni to take the floor and share some best practices on deinstitutionalization and independent living. Over to you, Ms. Uni.
Hello, thank you for the introduction, Mr. Puri. Thank you. So today I'm going to present to you about the disabled people's institutionalization and independent living movement in Japan. And unlike other fantastic panelist presentation, I'm going to take you through a brief history of the movement in Japan. So some of the things are not contemporary situation. So next slide, please. Before I start, a content warning that I will be talking about abuse and intentional murders of disabled people in this presentation. So please take care of yourself if you are not feeling so well. Next slide, please. Although the topic for this presentation is called the best practice for the institutionalization, unfortunately, Japan is still far from being completely deinstitutionalized. According to the Ministry of Welfare in Japan, 1.7% of people with physical disabilities, 7.2% of people with psychosocial disabilities, and 12.1% of people with learning disability live in institutions currently. As you would expect, there are lots of cases of abuse and neglect within these institutions. The worst example of this was, as some of you may have heard of this, in 2016, 19 people with complex disabilities were murdered in an institution by an ex-worker of the institution in Sagamihara, Japan. This was a huge shock to all of us in Japan, but also a reminder of the structural issues of the institutions. Oh, sorry, next slide, please. And, okay. While the institutions still exist in Japan, we also have a strong disability movement. An organization which led fundamental part of the disability movement is called Aoi Shiba no Kai, the National Association of People with Cerebral Palsy, which formed in 1957. They started by organizing study groups and camps. They also produced newsletters which people were able to write to. The association started with a focus of building connection with each other, but they became more radical from an incident in 1970. Next slide, please. A mother killed her daughter with cerebral palsy when she could not take care of her anymore. When she appeared in court, there was a movement by the public who felt sympathy for her, and they appealed to reduce her sentence. The association counteracted this public opinion to say that our lives matter, so she should be sentenced with murder. Next slide, please. In the same year, there was a protest at Fuchu Rehabilitation Center. It was a big institution built in 1968. The institution was going to be shifted to a more remote place in Tokyo. The treatment of disabled people living there was already horrible, and the residents feared that by moving far away from center of Tokyo, the treatment could become even worse. A few residents with cerebral palsy, including two siblings, Isao and Kuniko Nitta, protested against the shift. They also demanded to be treated as human. Then they came out of the institutions, which sparked consciousness towards the institutionalization in wider disabled community in Japan. At this time, people with disability mainly only lived either in institutions or with their families. However, their protests shed light on the struggles by people with disabilities in institutions, especially with people with significant impairments. And the movements and struggle towards the institutionalization started. There were no systems by the government to provide support workers or financial support for disabled people to live in the community then. So they gathered volunteers by themselves on the street, and that's how they lived day by day. The member of our Shibano Kai visited other people with disabilities in institutions or their homes to convince them to also move out and live independently in the community. There were many prominent members of the group, but two main members are called Hiroshi Yokota and Koichi Yokotsuka. As the movement grew, Mr. Yokota came up with 5 principles that they based their movement on, and I would like to introduce them to you. Next slide, or maybe a few slides ahead, sorry. So the first, we identify ourselves as people with cerebral palsy. By doing this, we recognize our position as an existence which should not exist in this modern society. We believe that this recognition should be the starting point of our whole movement, and we act on this belief. Second, we assert ourselves aggressively. By this means, when we identify ourselves as people with cerebral palsy, we have a will to protect ourselves. We believe that the strong self-assertion is the only way to achieve self-protection, and we act on this belief. Third, we deny love and justice. We condemn egoism held by love and justice. We believe that mutual understanding accompanying the human observation which arises from the denial of love and justice means a true well-being, and we act on this belief. Fourth, we do not choose the way of problem solving. We have learned from our personal experiences that easy solutions to problems lead to dangerous compromises. We believe that an endless confrontation is the only course of action possible for us, and we act on this belief. 5, we deny able-bodied civilization. We recognize that modern civilization has managed to sustain itself only by excluding us, people with cerebral palsy. We believe that creation of our own cultures through our movement and daily life leads to condemnation of modern civilization, and we act on this belief. These principles may sound very radical and surprising to lots of you, and there is a lot of context to understand how this came about. And unfortunately, I don't have the time to unpack these principles with you today. However, it is important to recognize that the foundation of disability movement in Japan has been led by people with significant impairments, especially with people with cerebral palsy. These principles have inspired many people with cerebral palsy many people with disabilities, across Japan, and movement grew rapidly. People felt empowered by the principle to challenge the discrimination and prejudice that prevented them from having autonomy in life. These people paved the way to create precedent in Japan that disabled people can live in the community. Around this time, a Center for Independent Living was forming in the States. More than 100 people with disability went to the States over the course of several years to learn from their centers about how they organize independent living. Next slide, please. Thank you. And when they came back, they decided to build independent living centers in Japan also. The first CIL was started in 1986 in Tokyo. They lobbied the government to build a system to provide pay support workers so that they are able to live in the community. They formed a nationwide organization called Japan Council on Independent Living Center. Currently, there are about 130 independent living centers in Japan. They are run by disabled people for disabled people. Next slide, please. They offer peer counseling support, daily life skill program, advocacy for people to gain government funding, manage their funding to provide support workers, and recruit and train support workers. These centers were mainly started by people with physical disabilities, and so there are a higher number of people with physical disability living in the community out of the institutions. However, there is more focus on supporting people with learning disabilities and psychosocial disabilities to also live in the community these days, especially after the incident in Sagamihara. Recently, more businesses have also joined to provide support workers to disabled people. Next slide, please. Oh, the one after, please. The funding people can receive differs based on the local government, but when there is a precedent, people are much more likely to receive bigger funding package that allows autonomy in life. One of the funding package is called Judo Homon Kaigo, which means support provided at home for people with severe disabilities. It is similar to the PA system in Sweden, where people can recruit their own support workers and pay for them. And there is a lot more liberty in how people can use the support work hours. This system is quite advanced, but unfortunately it is only available in certain parts of Japan so far. For example, my mother uses this funding package, and she receives about 17 hours a day, every day, and she is living independently in Hokkaido, Japan. There are a few other people who use 24/7 support in her community, and because of the collective need and advocacy, this has been possible. The original movement in Japan for deinstitutionalization was underpinned by strong will to live in this world and challenge the discrimination. The time has moved on and the society is slowly catching up with some of this message. And we have United Nations Convention on the Persons with Rights for Persons with Disability and different mechanisms that protect the rights of people with disabilities across the world. However, we still have a long way to go in achieving a world where the institutionalization is completed. I am very grateful to have this opportunity today to present you, and in the hope that together one day we can achieve the world without institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Yuni. Thank you for emphasizing on the right to live independently and independent living centers and how independent living centers can, promote towards inclusive communities and how people with disabilities can live a life on the equal basis to others. And as we know that Article 19 of the CRPD is a heart for all persons with disabilities. And as you mentioned that uh, the principles, the most important one was on the identity, I think. And because identity is the beginning, if there is, unless we have an identity, things may not change for us in the society, and even negotiating with the governments and advocating with the governments. You also highlighted the involvement of diverse disabilities in consultations, which is again a very important aspect for the disability inclusive development. Thank you so much. I would now request Ms. Amulaya, care leaver from Udayan Care, India, and Ms. Leena Prasad from Udayan Care, India, to take the floor for next presentation. Ms. Amulaya is a woman living with epilepsy. Overcoming all her limitations, Amulaya has enabled herself into different sports and participated in various sports competitions for children with disabilities, winning numerous awards, certificates, and laureled alongside many known sports personalities. Ms. Amulaya presented in India in the World Summer Games for disabled young adults in athletes in March 2019, where she won a bronze medal in a 100-meter race and bagged a fourth position. Currently, she's pursuing a vocational course in hospitality in India. She is hopeful of excelling in this field and build a career. Moreover, she has been awarded with a scholarship to pursue higher education. Amulaya came across as an inspiration to many children with disabilities, redefining the possibilities of achieving well in life. Her session is complemented by Ms. Leena Prasad, Advocacy Research and Training Officer at Udayan Care. Ms. Leena Prasad is a trained lawyer based out of Delhi with over 20 years of experience of working with a range of civil society organizations, networks, government systems on gender equality, child rights, with focus on child protection and alternative care. Over to you. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I am grateful to the anchor for supporting me, like home, food, health, education, and good training skill. I want to say that I am speaking for children who are like me, but they are not giving, supporting, then they turn 18. I am giving, supporting, they is when I am able to achieve my goal. Live in aftercare, I learned my skills, training. Everyone talk about me. Every are proud of me. Every they learn think about from me. All my sister helped me in my study and become strong. I am cheerful because of my mentor. I am grateful of supporting. I am in graduation and giving call, scholarship. This is all because of Udayan Care, and I am my training skill. If other children will get support, they will do better and become independent. I am a support sports person. I won medal in national game. My biggest moment was that when I won bronze medal in the Nash World Summer Olympic in Dubai with my graduation other by becoming example for other children. I stay need support. There is nothing that can stop me. I want my people, government to support young children. If I am able to do great, then other children will also do. Please support them for their better them. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Amulaya. Thank you for sharing your. It was, really good to hear from you that how you are moving ahead in your life, and you are a true example for all children with disabilities. I just want to check with Miss Lina Prasad. Do you want to say something? I saw you speaking, but your mic was on mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, each time I hear Amulya and young people like Amulya speak up and express their thought, it only overwhelms me to a point that I find no words to further add to what they have already shared. But quickly, Wakar, if you allow me, I will just add a few points to what Amulya has already spoken about.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So just to share with you that Amulya came to Udayan Care when she was very small, almost 6 years old, and she's been with us. She's 22 today, and she's been with us as a family. And we, like, when Amulya was talking, I was getting the feel that a proud parent gets, when a child is there up and sharing her thoughts. Udayan Care is an NGO based out of Delhi in India, and we've been working on child and youth care for the last 28 years. We started our Sunshine Homes, which is like an institution, but not an institution in our belief and our approach, because we always believed in providing a family like environment to children who come to our care and protection. Our homes are built on a very different, unique model, which is called twin homes. There are small group homes, and at no point of time do we allow more than 12 children to stay in our homes. And people like Amulya, children with different abilities, continue to stay with all other children. So there is no special home that we maintain for children with different abilities. They are all integrated and they stay mainstreamed in our regular homes, in a very inclusive approach that we have towards care and protection. After 18, since inception, since the 1990s, when we started our first homes, we have also ensured continuum of care, which is after 18, the children continue to stay in our aftercare home, like Amulya, who continues to stay in one of our girls' aftercare home. And over the last 28 years, we have been successful in, mainstreaming and making over 1,500 children completely independent. Most of them today are lawyers, engineers. They are employed successfully in corporates, and there is a very clear focus on their education, their skilling, and their mental well-being. So these are the core pillars of our care and protection work. Along with the direct work that we on the ground, we also engage in advocacy, research, and training at local, national, and global levels. This allows us to keep learning about the good practices from across the world and also share our work with the external larger world. In 2018, we collaborated with UNICEF India, and we brought out a research report, the first of its kind, that interviewed almost 500 care leavers, and we tried to understand the realities of aftercare in India, where we found that most of the children who are transitioning out of institutional care to independent living are not prepared for this transition. They are not provided with enough opportunities or skills that allow them to become independent. And aftercare remained one of those unaddressed child protection areas in the country. But since the research happened and a lot of recommendations came, I'm happy to share that, there's been a lot of attraction on this subject over the last recent years. And the governments are more, I think, conscious of the need to support children who are coming out of institutional care, to provide them a continued aftercare support. Udyan Care has also been organizing, this international conference on alternative care since 2014. And the last one that we organized was just last December, where 8 international agencies came together to deliberate upon the situation of deinstitutionalization and various aspects of alternative care across Asia. One of the feelings that we get from all these discourses is that, it is not the form of care that matters so much as, what matters is the quality, the standards of care that you provide, even in institutional care. If you look at Amulya, she's excelled in her dream. She wanted to be good in sports. We provided her that opportunity. She's gone to Dubai. She's won awards for her country. And that is what I think makes the difference. Instead of talking about deinstitutionalization of spaces, what we need to focus on is deinstitutionalization of our mindsets. Even in small group homes, I think if you're able to provide love, belongingness, trust, and focus on the strengths of the children, you are able to give them a life where they can hone their skills, they can excel their potentials, and they surely can get into independent living with confidence, with resiliency, and like any other, child or young person. One of the other advocacy efforts that, we've been, I think, very successful in is bringing care leavers together into networks and platforms that provides these young people with their own independent, peer-led support group, and connecting, sharing their own challenges with each other, enabling them to become advocates for themselves, talking about their concerns, meeting with the different stakeholders, and giving them the confidence that they too can give back to society. Giving back to society when they grow up, they are settled and they're independent, I think gives them a boost to their confidence that they too can contribute to the country and to the larger society. Uh, in Bihar, we have a project, that is again UNICEF supported. Bihar is one of those most struggling states in the country. And there, when we just went ahead and did a study of all the childcare institutions in the states, there are about 58 institutions in the state, and we found that more than 50% of children staying in institutions were children having some form of disability. And we also found that the caregivers, the staff in the institutions are not at all trained. They are not at all prepared to even plan a rehabilitation for such children. Based on a ground experience for over these years, I think we recommend two actions across Asia to progress towards assisted independent living for children and youth with disabilities. The first one is that we need to undertake more data management and research studies that help us understand the realities, that help us understand the current challenges. And if we document the good practices that exist, we can learn a lot and be able to upscale and put in models in place that will assist not only one organization but across everyone working in this space. The second recommendation that we'd like to make is that we need to come up with some structured training programs for all the social development workforce, especially those who are working with children directly in the institutions, so that we can build their capacities of how do you actually work with children and young people with different abilities. With this, Wakar, I'd like to thank everyone for giving me, Amulya, and myself the chance to speak and share our work with all of you. And we really look forward to continuing to keep the connection and working together in the times to come.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Ms. Lina Prasad. I really appreciate your hard work and thank you so much. I really see Amulya as inspiration for all young children with disabilities, and she's an inspiration for all of us. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on and what work you are doing in India through the Care. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. With this, now we will move to our last speaker of today's session. I will request Mr. Sumera to please take the floor. He's a person with a physical disability, a journalist, and a member of Generation Never Give Up Network Sri Lanka. He will be with Ms. Nimu from Care Liver, Sri Lanka, and will share situation of institutionalization of persons with disabilities in Sri Lanka, the legal framework of deinstitutionalization, lessons learned during their work in Sri Lanka, and their way forward. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, dear. Actually, first I would like to say thank you for this opportunity. So I will quickly move into my short PPT. Actually, myself is Nimu, and myself with Sumira will be representing the Sri Lanka here. So I will first start from my side, and then I will move into the Sumira. So may I quickly ask for the sharing the presentation, please, from Sri Lanka? Okay, myself and I am a caregiver from Sri Lanka, and I am representing Asian very first caregivers network called Generation Never Give Up Network in Sri Lanka, where there are caregivers from all over the country, including the youth with differently able. And myself, I grew up in a childcare institution since childhood, and at the age of 20, I got a scholarship from India to study journalism. Then I started my career in Sri Lankan largest NGO called Sarvodaya. So currently I am studying criminal investigation from Sri Lankan University, also volunteering and doing advocacy around the country to prevent the children to be institutionalization, and also awareness on the rights of caregivers and children in care. So next slide, please. So I'm directly going into the points that I'm planning to share here. The local context on Sri Lankan person with disability, especially youth who left the care, there is no such a statistics details on this. I had a discussion with an organization working with disability sector, and they mentioned there is no tracking system. Also, the data available on caregivers who left care with disability. And also, yes, I agree as it's not in our system, but here we have a special opportunity for the children and youth with disability for higher studies, which I have seen here. So the problems began when they reach out to the society. So regarding these issues, we'll talk by our main speaker Sumir soon after myself. So next slide, please. So this is what is GNGN and work so far and future. GNG is a generation never give up network, which we are representing here. So here I just want to share a few points as youth group, what we are doing with care leavers, not only youth with differently able, common group of care leavers in Sri Lanka. So currently we have over 450 care leavers with us in this network. So also the person with this different label also with us, and also we got even registered under the company act. We help each other, especially we are supporting during the COVID period, and we help more than 350 care leavers with goods pack and the boarding fee also. So not only that, we are sharing, we also give the opportunity for the care leavers through our network, scholarship for higher education, counseling services, legal advisors, and career guidance, and also job opportunities, kind of job opportunities from our network. We all are the team of care leavers who made this network, initiated by Association Village in Sri Lanka. So as a group, we are now doing our advocacy program all over the country as a team. So next slide, please. So what our GNG advocacy, I just want to highlight the few points that awareness on improving quality of caregivers, because we are not famous giving opportunity for the institution, but we are requesting that the quality of caregivers should be improved. And we are doing awareness for this as a GNG network, and also awareness program for school leavers especially, and the teachers and the parents, to how to respect to the children who are living in the care. And also for the students in the childcare institution, the value of family to preventing of children getting institutionalization. So also we are doing a awareness program for preventing re-institutionalize of care leavers children. So next slide, please. The latest statistics of Sri Lankan child care system that we have found that there are 379 child care institutions in Sri Lanka, and also 10,479 children in care. And out of these, 80% of the children in care, they have parents. That it means that there is a possibility of deinstitutionalization the children. So we are finding that the difficulty of socialization for the children in institution, as they are so not experience any family connection, and they have difficulties in maintaining their relationship. So this is the point that what I wanted to share with you guys. So I just want to share to my sisters and brothers who are presenting here that don't ever think that you are a person with differently. So this is something like I always believe, and this word is the disability is now moving on to the person with disability or person with differently able. So for me, like disability is person with differently able. You are something unique that you can do something better. So with this my presentation, I would like to invite my friends and my brother who are representing our network, Sumira Gunasekara. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Nimu. Thank you very much. Have you heard me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Sumir. Yes, Sumir.
Okay. Have a nice day, everyone. Have a nice day, and I want to say Happy Valentine's Day for everyone. I can see your face, nice smile. So again and again, I want to say Happy Valentine's Day for everyone. Today is a very special day for me. It's not because of Valentine. It's because of This is my first international event where I joining. So thanks to my team to choosing for this program, Nimu. Put all the congratulations later. I'll get to the story. I was born disabled child. Can you hear? I believe. Can you see me clearly? I believe you can see me. Okay. Then I will say my story first. My parents left me because of my disability. I learned about this from a note of my mother written. It's just a painful story for someone. It's just painful story for someone, but it's really nice, beautiful story for me. That story is beautiful because of the environment in which I grew up. Even as a boy, I have to live in a convent background. I think very provincially about I think very positively about my life because of the religious background that I have built up around me. So I think now I am a mature young man. In this life, we are all disabled in some way. In this life, we all disabled in some way. You know what I mean. So even so, there are so many disabled people living in Sri Lanka. Our country has suffered severely from the war. I think you know that. Sri Lanka suffered because of war. 30 years. So I think many people in our country became disabled due to the war. It is the same in the north and south. People is people. A war can never be won because it is the loss of humanity. My dear friends, I am a man who has suffered so much society because of the disability. Believe me, the number of times I even thought of committing suicide. When I was young, people saying, seeing man, orphanage child, dog, like that song, it's good to suicide myself. So, in fact, I'm very sorry about the laws, regulations in our country regarding disabled people. I'm very sorry about laws in our country. I represent my country, but I'm very sorry about laws regarding disabled people in our country. It is only on the 3rd of December that people in our country are reminded that disabled people will live with them. December 3rd. You know what? My birthday also December 3rd. December 3rd is a World Disability Persons Day. So in Sri Lanka, people are inviting disabled people, child, they are helping, and we can see the TV programs going on live. So only for December 3rd. So I have seen laws in other countries regarding people with disability. I heard some laws in Indonesia, India, so many other countries. It's very nice. And I'm very sorry about my country. I'm very sorry about my country. The way they treat the disability is those countries, and the way they treat the disability in my country is amazing, different from heaven to earth. Very different. There are many institutions in our country dedicated to the disabled persons. Very big teams. They are doing this and that. They are saying we are doing this. We are stand with disabled people. No, not. It's all about appearance. So my dear friends, my dear buddies, when a disabled person is socialized, the obstacles they face are enormous. The challenges they face in public transport hospitals, at schools, in country laws, in shops are weird. Weird mean weird. Only those who have faced such a situation will realize how helpless they are in such a places. Again, I will tell, only those have faced such a situation will realize how helpless they are in such a places. I know you can feel what I say. My friends, I feel a lot of pain. I feel a lot of pain. I ask you, if disabled people are not a human being, I ask you, don't they feel hungry? I ask you, don't they feel sad? Don't they feel helpless? My dear friends, we all are talk about disabled person, disability. We are talking about disabled person are unique. We are talking, only we are you talking. In Sri Lanka, people are only just words. They are not acting. I'm talking about my personal experience. Now I am a journalist. Now I am a writer. Now in Sri Lankan, if you are saying my name, people know me. If you are saying my name in Sri Lanka, Sumira Gunasekara, they all know me because I trust myself. But there is a lot of disabled person, they can't come up, they can't talk in stage because of the society make they will leave one side. No, they can't say anything. They sing. No, disabled person is another world. They are think like that. So finally, we need to socialize the nation that we are not special. We have to say that one. We are not special. And that we are simple, ordinary people. We have to say, we are not different. We are simple, ordinary people. Being special, that specializing his person all the time has a huge impact on his life. Being special, again and again, I'm telling to you, being special change the way people look at us. So my idea is specializing in person all that the time has huge impact on his life, both positive and negative. Young people from many countries who have talked about this program before me, they talk about issues related to the disability communities in their countries. My dear friends, they suggest situations. My idea is that reminds and suggestions belong to all disabled community in every country in all the world. So I don't have to say reminders and suggestion again and again. I feel good that those things are happening in this world. People become disabled non-intentionally. It's the way they are born and their story. So in my life, I heard many people say disability due to the sinfulness. Ayo, sin fellow, orphanage guy, he has not hand. In Sri Lanka, we are saying pau. Pau in our language. Pau means sin fellow. It's very, very painful word, my dear friends. I have asked you, is that really so? How painful it must be for someone to hear the words. Many people have said those words to me in my life. I think we need to change those little things. We can't do big things in one time. We have to change these little things, how we think. I think we need to change the things little things, little by little. The time has come to change the way this whole society thinks. The time has come. You may be wondering why I'm not using a presentation when I'm talking in this story. You're wondering. When I look this program, one Indonesia, my friends say, show us a nice presentation. So many nice presentation. Now you are wondering, this fellow is not using presentation. My dear friends, I just want to look at your face and say this thing. Yes, we accept that we are disabled. Yes, we accept that we are disabled. Do not be afraid to show those world your ability. Again and again, I'm saying, do not be afraid to say, do not be afraid to show your ability to the world. My dear friends, finally, I have to say, we are not disabled. We are people with special needs. We are not disabled. Finally, I want to say, we are people with special needs, special needs. My buddies, we'll try to change this world as much as we can. I have a lot of more great stories to tell you, but time is running out. So for now, I will stop this story until I see you again. I hope I will see you again. Let change the world as much as we can. We can't do big things at once, but collection of little things can the way, but the collection of little things pave the way for big things to happen. So again and again, I want to say, we are very unique. We are very unique. Show your ability to the world. I saw my ability. I can talk. I can write. Now I have a value in this society. Before I don't have. When I was young, when I was orphanage, I don't have. People say, Pau, sin fellow, ayo, sin fellow. Only that word. It break my brain. But I thought, no, I am a unique person. Because of that, the whole country know myself. The whole country know my name. So, my dear buddies, you are unique. At last, I want to say, yes, you are unique. Show your value to society. Thank you so much. I'm Sumir Gunasekara from Sri Lanka. We will meet again. Bye.
Thank you, Sumir. Thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Nimi and Sumira, for highlighting that there are rights of caregivers. And I think having a network of 150 members in the network, it can, create a great impact on advocacy activities in Sri Lanka. And thank you for highlighting that children in institutions are not having access to family systems, which is very important. And a social life is everything for us. Sumira, thank you for sharing your story with us. You are a powerful advocate. I really appreciate your efforts and passion towards speaking at your first international event and speaking on the rights of persons with disabilities. You highlighted about required changes in the laws in Sri Lanka, especially in education, employment, transportation, health. We all are persons with disabilities. And these platforms are an opportunity for us to speak about our challenges and so that our voices are taken forward. So it is good to have a youth GDS this year. This will surely be impactful, and governments will bring focus on the youth with disabilities as well. I thank you for also highlighting that we need to change the way we think, and we can do that by creating awareness. I think that there is a need to create awareness on CRPD, Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and it is important to understand who are persons with disabilities, what are their rights, and what is their identity and everything. Thank you so much for your presentation. I would now ask that if there are any questions and for the panelists, you can write it down in the Q&A.
I can see few question and answered in the Q&A. So if you can please ask relevant to the panelist. So there are one around psychosocial disability.
There is a question from Mohammad Talha. How to improve and implement inclusion for all disabilities? Any of the panelists would like to respond to this question? Should I request Agus?
Yeah. Yes, I can answer that questions. To make the disability or a person with disabilities is more inclusive. It's just we make every stakeholders or any discussion or any policy discourses make sure that everyone who live with disability is invited and is heard, um, uh, and of course during the implementation of the program we are not just sit there just invited but not being listened to, but also for our thoughts and opinion has to be counted for the inclusive policy. And I just want to highlight that for progressive and immediate realization, for the institutionalization, we need specific data on how many social care institutions and the number of residents, how many people who are in detention or people with high support needs, it's being reported. And real political will, such as policy, we need to ban arbitrary detention and any form of violence and torture within social care institution. In my case, for person with psychosocial disability, or specific program for both to prevent such as the diversity of community-based support services, funding to develop program to stop the torture and that compliance with the CRPD and human rights plans, adopt I think person-centered process and to empowerment programs such as vocational training that are needed in the community, so a resident will have a job for transitioning to the society, that it's much more to make the society is more inclusive, and massive education and socialization of program to disseminate this issue to the government and other social and any other human rights movement, and of course to the society is another important things that need to be highlighted, especially the paradigm shift and how to treat human decently like human. And of course, advanced social protection programs that inclusive for all person with disability wherever you are, such as concession card, public housing, cash benefit, disability benefit, support person, or many other inclusive social protection schemes need to be discussed due to our needs, because in every region, every culture, every country, the needs could be different. And when we look at concluding, let's say, concluding observation for some countries regarding the institutionalization with clear idea, but it is still difficult to implement for some countries. So we need to develop a guideline for every stakeholder, especially for the government, for the NGO, for the organization of persons with disability, families association, or caregiver association, to implement the institutionalization program. For example, the mechanism on how to release a person or many people with disabilities to live within in the society with education, with skill, and of course with employment. Thank you.
Thank you, Agus. We have another question on invisible disabilities, such as multiple scenarios and other blood disorders are mostly neglected. When we talk about leaving no one behind, what are the inputs to have better inclusion? Agus, I will request again to you to address this question on invisible disabilities. And when we talk about leaving no one behind, what are the inputs to have better inclusion?
Yeah, what are the invisible disability? Invisible disability is a person who has a barrier to let's say to participate in the environment and the social interaction to people, but people who are disabilities in the past, usually they are very visible. Right now, we can see exactly like deaf people, they are actually invisible, especially when they are how to communicate. For example, psychosocial disabilities, they are invisible disabilities. And also some of types of intellectual disabilities is also invisible, but they have barrier, they have challenge. The barrier and challenge is not our impairment, or it's not our diagnostic or psychiatric diagnostic. It is the barrier is actually the environment and how the society can invite us or count us to participate in decision making in the for the policy making, for example. The process of no one leaving behind, it's I'm pretty sure it's correlating with the sustainable development goals, that we just want to make sure that there is no one in every country and every region, or whatever your condition, whatever your types of disabilities, they are should be not left behind for the information, for the equal rights, for the fulfillment of the rights, and for the respect, and for the protection of the rights. I think that's the. I think probably any other speaker could add more specific on that. Thank you, Waqar.
I think receiving so many questions, and also on the other hand, I'm receiving so many text messages on the chat box that we have to close as we are over time. And I would, just thank everyone for being with us today and attending this webinar. Really great to have all speakers. Thank you, everyone. Thanks all the interpreters. Thanks all the support person. Thank you, IDA team at the back end who have been supporting us. And I've received another chat that you will get responses to the questions in the chat box, and they will reply to it. And we should we'll wait here for the next roundtable, which is on transiting employment for youth with disabilities. Thank you, everyone, once again. Have a good day.